Ladies and gentlemen, it is my hope that you're fine wherever you are. Welcome to another episode of Raw Politics. In Kenya today, we have two camps, politically speaking. Those who believe that William Ruto deserves a second chance, or what you would call a second term, and the other team that is persuaded that William Ruto must be voted out of office come 2027. I do love doing comparison between William Ruto and Donald Trump of the United States. Both of them vied for the first time for the presidency and won. And two, both of them were painted as the devil incarnate when they announced their candidature. Three, both of them were opposed vehemently by the media. I could go on, but there are always similarities between William Ruto and Donald Trump. You see, when Donald Trump was vying for the first time, that was in 2016. Like I said, he was dismissed as a joker. But when they saw that he had already gotten the Republican nomination, they didn't see him as a joker anymore, but now started to demonize him. However, there is something that was working for Donald Trump, and it had nothing to do with who he was. It had everything to do with what was happening to Americans. Donald Trump, in my opinion, was not elected and now re-elected because he's charming or because of is this particular individual. It was because of what he said he would do and what he went ahead to do. Of course, Democrats were persuaded there was no way under the sun that Donald Trump, a non-politician, an outsider, would win that election. But then there is something, like I said before, that was working for Donald Trump. He looked at the issues that were plaguing Americans and highlighted them, but never stopped there. He said what he would do to correct them. If it was an issue with cost of living, maybe issues with gas prices, he said, this is the problem. We have gas prices at an all-time high because of 1, 2, 3. What I intend to do is that when I take over, I will do this and this. And when he took over, even though the Democrats made it their goal to frustrate him and even try to impeach him twice, he did so much that even though he did not get re-elected immediately in 2020, when he vied again in 2024, Donald Trump got more votes than he got in the first election. Now, why do you think that was so? Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, the main reason why Donald Trump could win was that he knew where the problem was. He highlighted them. 2, he said what he was going to do. And 3, when he was elected, he did exactly what he told them he was going to do. And so when he came in 2024, the question was simple. Americans were asking themselves, were we better under Donald Trump in his first term, or are we doing very well under Biden? And the answer was very simple, that Americans were doing better, economically speaking, under Donald Trump. And so they gave him another chance. And they didn't just give him another chance. Donald Trump was elected overwhelmingly. He won the popular vote, he won the Electoral College, won Congress, and is even said to have played a part in ensuring that the American Supreme Court is mostly conservative. So this guy won because he knew where the problem was and he did something that people could see. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I think is going to work for William Ruto. And I want to paint for you a picture. Picture this. You went to school and did teaching as a course. And for all these years, you've been jobless. At best, you find yourself in some private school where they pay you peanuts. Well, William Ruto comes in, He says there is a gap in the student-teacher ratio, and I'm planning to fix it by hiring teachers. And then he goes ahead and ensures that over 70,000 teachers are hired, the highest hiring in the history of this country. If you are that teacher who now has a job, when somebody comes to you and tells you that William Ruto has failed and should go home, what do you think will happen? Will you take them seriously? You wouldn't. Because you would look at the reality. Without William Ruto's policies, you would not have been hired. And not that he stopped hiring. His target is that by January of 2026, he would have hired at least 100,000 teachers. If somebody in 3 years has hired 100,000 teachers, new teachers, if you went to those 100,000 teachers who, remember, have dependents, some of the dependents are old enough to vote. If you tell them that you are bringing in a regime whose aim is to undo everything that William Ruto did, because that is what the so-called opposition is telling you without shame, that when we take over, we are going to undo William Ruto's policies. Somebody who ensured that you have a permanent and pensionable job. Will you listen to the opposition? Chances are, unless you are possessed somehow, unless you are irrational somehow, you are likely to say no. Another example. You see this affordable housing project that is going on across the country. You have over 100,000 working in this affordable housing project. We have over 1,000 slums. To get rid of slums and ensure that at least the 7 million that are living in slums are housed in decent housing, construction will continue. So if you are now getting some income that is consistent through this affordable housing program, and somebody tells you that the first thing they are coming to do is to scrap the affordable housing program, how will you take it? It will be somebody coming to ensure you go back to poverty. It will be somebody coming to ensure that you never have a chance of leaving the slums. Will you support that? What I'm trying to paint for you here, ladies and gentlemen, is that when someone highlights the problems of Kenya during campaign, like William Ruto did, and then tells Kenyans what he was going to do in a very detailed manifesto that was criticized for being too detailed for a manifesto, and then he takes over and he embarks on doing exactly what he promised. Exactly what he promised. What do you think will happen? I gave you an example in the United States. That democracy is older than ours. It is over 200 years old. And if they could sit down, and even though Trump has his issues and people might not agree with everything he does, but they looked at how did he steer the economy? How did he change lives? And people found out that during Trump, they were doing better than they are under Biden. So even though they are liberals, or even though in terms of beliefs they share the same, they were looking at who can deliver, who can make life bearable. And William Ruto said, ladies and gentlemen, I am not going to subsidize food. I am not going to subsidize electricity. What I will do, I will subsidize production. And people mocked him. Some people even went to the streets to demand subsidies. And today, ladies and gentlemen, unless you are going for the premium brands, you know very well that without subsidy, we have in this country during William Ruto even enjoyed 2 kg of maize flour at 100 shillings. Yes, he went recruited as many small-scale farmers as possible and then gave them fertilizer. And production of food, production of maize went higher. Even today in our strategic reserves, we are doing very well. Very soon, Kenya will be food secure. Whether it is sugar, we are producing enough sugar that very soon, ladies and gentlemen, we will be exporting sugar. What I'm trying to tell you is when your opponents underestimate the ability of the voter to see and appreciate change, they always lose. And that is what happened in the United States. And that is what is likely to happen here, ladies and gentlemen. The Democrats underestimated the American voter and believed that all that mattered was telling Americans how evil Trump was, how crude he was, how unworthy he was. Even indicted him so that they could call him a convicted felon. That is what they believed people cared about. And I'm seeing the same trend in Kenya here. All you will hear from Rigathi, Kalonzo, and all these people is how evil Ruto is, how uncouth Ruto is, how Ruto doesn't deserve to be president, how the main agenda is to remove William Ruto, not to share counter policies. No, the main agenda is to remove, and they are persuaded that there are so many better Kenyans who can join them and remove William Ruto. That's why I'm telling you, some of these people who are chanting one term will be shocked. They might have serious depression because you have convinced yourself that an ordinary voter in Kenya can't see change and appreciate it. That teacher who was hired will be like, oh, he hired me, but he's a very bad guy, let him go. That the farmer that is receiving cheaper fertilizer will be like, even though I'm receiving cheaper fertilizer, he let him go. That this sugarcane farmer who is now even getting bonus will be like, let him go. I don't want to see him. The lady who just gave birth and the NBU fees were paid for her through SHA will be like, SHA is okay, but let them go. People who have moved from slum for the first time and entered into dignified apartments would sit there and say, even though these apartments are good, but we don't like this guy, let him go. No, that is not how voting works. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not how it works. People have the ability to appreciate. People might complain about change. And I told you, the people who benefit from status quo will always complain about change. If you are one person who was enjoying how things are, and then somebody comes and upsets it, you are definitely going to complain. But majority of people who are suffering and are now seeing light at the end of the tunnel, they are likely to vote for William Ruto. People will tell you that based on what I'm seeing, I'll vote for this man because he is also the only guy in this competition that is giving Kenyans hope. That is saying that we don't have to be where we are. We are punching below our weight. As a country, we have our peers, Korea, the people of Malaysia, you have Indonesia, you have Singapore. All these countries, the so-called Asian tigers, were at par with Kenya, economically speaking. But now they dwarf us virtually in everything. And you have a president who is saying, I have gone to them. I have even invited them to my country, and they have told me what you need to do. And we will do that to make sure that Kenyans live a dignified life. That is hope, ladies and gentlemen. And it is hope that is coming from somebody who has shown you that is capable of making very difficult decisions if it is going to benefit the majority. So even though the likes of Rigathi are threatening that if William Ruto wins, they are going to make the country chaotic, but I can tell you, a sizable number of Kenyans can see change. They can see what William Ruto is doing, and they're saying, this is what I want. So you can make noise. The media can paint William Ruto as the devil incarnate. They can run every narrative. But Kenyans are asking themselves, I was buying unga at 240. Now it is playing at 150, sometimes even going to 110. That is better for me. I was buying cooking oil at 1,600 for the 6 kg gas. Now it is averaging 1,000. That is okay for me. Somebody would say cooking oil had gone up to 500 Kenya shillings for a liter. Now it is playing at 250 or thereabout. That is better for me. In terms of inflation, we were playing at 9%. Now we are at 3. At times we were even at 2 point something, which was a 17-year record. When somebody looks at that, they're like, okay, you're saying this guy is bad, but he's getting things done. So what is wrong with him? Is it the name? Is it because he is coming from this community? Or is it because he didn't do as told? Is that why you want him out? And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, people are not that naive. Don't underestimate voters. When we were going into the election of 2022, we met people who told us plainly that there was no way Kenyans were going to elect William Ruto. And we said that what matters is, apart from the tribal arrangement, what matters also is a president who is telling people what he was going to do different. Fortunately today for William Ruto is that his opponents don't have any agenda. I'm not kidding. They are even proudly saying they don't have an agenda. Somebody like Rigathi was saying, I don't want to promise you that I will do anything. All I can promise you is that when I take over, I will destroy whatever it is that William Ruto has done. Others like Sifuna are saying, we don't need any agenda. We have one agenda. The agenda is to remove Ruto from office. That is not an alternative, ladies and gentlemen. You can't remove food from somebody's mouth without offering them an alternative. That, oh no, we will starve together or we will look for food later. It doesn't work like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to tell you that what will work for William Ruto is his development scorecard. This will get William Ruto elected. Even those who didn't like him before, there are some who will tell you they now like him. Of course, it is true there are those who liked him before, but now they don't like him. But there are also others who, on matters of principle, didn't like William Ruto, but now support him. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what I wanted to tell you. That Ruto's scorecard is most likely to play the biggest role in getting him re-elected, just like it did for Donald Trump. It doesn't matter which name they call him. It doesn't matter which narrative is run, but scorecard will play a bigger role. As William Ruto said himself, that he will come to Kenyans and he will tell them, this is what we agreed that I should do. And this is what I've done. And there are things you can confirm. Then Kenyans now will make a decision. And I can tell you, chances are that people would rather go with progress than go into uncharted waters of, we will destroy everything, then figure out what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found value in this video. If you did, let me know in the comment section. And if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please take a second, subscribe to the channel, and like this video and share it with your friends. Otherwise, in case you want to know the 3 reasons why William Ruto may easily be re-elected, watch this video.